chicken has been a very important component of cuisine and food in China. Actually, yesterday in the welcoming dinner, I believe that all our local and international friends, each of us actually had one whole chicken in the welcoming dinner. So it's a very large part in our cuisine. And the case today is about KFC in China and about some of its corporate scandal, food safety issue, and also how it can move forward among all this scandal. So today, we are Team Hong Kong U. We are really grateful to be here today in Hong Kong U, representing Hong Kong U. Allow me to introduce my team. On the far left is Joseph, and then Kelvin, Yan, and me, myself, Ivan. Today, we are going to present to you the safe and sound strategy for KFC to move forward in all these corporate scandals of food safety. So what do we mean by safe and sound? Safe, it means that we want to revamp the supply chain so that we can ensure the product of KFC that are sold in China are actually safe. It includes diversifying the sourcing, selecting the right farmer for KFC and for the food processor, and also centralizing the food processing processes. And second, sound. What do you mean by sound? It's actually building a very sound brand image so that we can retain and grow our customer base and meet all these issues. So it includes stepping up in the current crisis management system and also be a pioneer in setting up new industry standards for food safety. So let's take a look why we come up with this safe and sound strategy. First, we want to look at what KFC is like before all the issues, before all the food safety issues. So before 2013, it's actually a very, very successful Western fast food chain in China. First reason is because it's a Western brand. In the past, it's conceived that being a Western brand, it means that they provide food of very high quality. This is an old-fashioned trend, but still it applies in KFC before 2013. And the second reason is the consumer preference. As I've mentioned in the introduction, Chinese consumers, they prefer chicken a lot more than beef and pork. They really, really like chicken. Actually, in terms of global consumption, China is number 2 in terms of global chicken domestic consumption. So really a huge nation of chicken. And then the last one is localization. KFC is very good at localization in China. It's actually many, many steps ahead than other Western counterparts in localizing their menu, but not only menu, but also their operations, supply chain, and logistics. So they actually have 2 times outlet than McDonald's in China, and also they are highly, highly profitable. But then, issues arise and challenges are faced by KFC. There are 3 major problems or challenges that are faced by KFC now. The first one is the instant chicken scandal, and the second one is the bird flu outbreak. Both these 2 issues actually are related to food safety concerning chicken, no matter KFC chicken or chicken in general. These 2 issues lead to a plunging consumer confidence in KFC. Actually, even after some initial PR campaign, there are still 39% of Chinese consumers think that they have very strong concern about the quality of KFC chicken. So as we can see, all these issues bring a very sharp decline in same-store sales when we compare year to year or quarter to quarter. And then all this actually give opportunities for our competitors to catch up in this Chinese market. So we want to understand more about the instant chicken scandal and the bird flu issue. Actually, how do this issue affect KFC? We can see this is the whole supply chain of KFC. We have farmers, middlemen, processors, KFC, and then customers. So in the first part, before KFC, all those suppliers are very dispersed. And so KFC have a lack of control over them. And for KFC, they need more room to improve their internal control as well. And lastly, for customer, there is a delayed and also insufficient PR and communication effort. So what should we do about those? We should, at first, before the product reach our customers, we have to ensure that the food are actually safe. So one of the key questions is, how can we ensure that the products are safe? And the second key question of the case is, how can we make our customer know about how safe our food are? That's why we decided to focus on the safe and sound strategy, which is supply chain management and also branding and PR. I'll pass my time to my colleague Yan to talk to Joseph to talk more about safe, which is the supply chain management.
Thank you, Ivan. So KFC is obviously the product is chicken, so we cannot let go the chicken. All we can do is make it safer. So why we decided to continue to choose Chinese pottery, but why? Actually, there are threefold. First of all, is bird flu. Actually, it's a global issue. It doesn't matter whether it's Chinese chicken or American chicken. They all face the same issue, the bird flu, because because the birds fly and they will infect the chickens. So no matter where you are, you can have a risk of bird flu. Secondly, is the improved safety regulation in China. They have imposed the ISO 2200 safety regulations. This enables us to provide better control of the safety issues in chicken in China. Thirdly, is the rising protectionism. Actually, China and America is the major producer of chicken, so they always impose anti-dumping duty in the foreign imports. So in many ways, actually, you have heard recently in the news, Chinese impose anti-dumping from American pottery, so they cannot import chickens. The most economic and rational choice is continue to focus on Chinese chicken. But how can we do that to make it safer? Before what we can do is we continue the company farmer model. Why? Because it is cost effective. We don't want to in-house all the production and farming processes within KFC. We just want to have an effective control. And secondly, because the suppliers is diverse, as mentioned by Ivan, we have better bargaining power over the suppliers. We enable us to control and maintain the price. Thirdly, is flexibility. Even though we want to raise chicken or but not import chickens from elsewhere, we provide a flexibility that somehow maybe bird flu is really dangerous in China, so we can shift our supply sources from elsewhere. But how can we do that? It is actually a threefold approach. We first diversify the chicken sources. Secondly, we select good farmers. We want to deal with the good farmers only. Thirdly, we establish a centralized processing center. So first of all, is diversify the chicken source. Currently, we source from major suppliers, but what we are proposing is we source chicken from all over China, all regions, northern China, southern China, eastern China, everywhere. And we also change the type of chickens. Right now, the major source is white feather chicken, which is more prone to diseases. We hope to shift the components of this mix from into the right-hand side bar chart, actually reduce the white chicken and increase other types of chicken, for example, hybrids and cod. And this will enable us to have a source that protected from bird flu. And the only consequence is we increase the product lead time from 81 days to 89 days. It's a slight increase, which is not really matter for us. Secondly, we improve our select chicken farmers. We have 4 initiatives. We optimize the farm size. We reduce the smaller farmers. We reduce the larger farmers because we focus on the smaller, medium size, such that when they are bird flu, we don't ruin the whole supply source. With other sources, for example, the star supply list, which Yan will talk about, which we increase this industry standard, and we only deal with the farmers we qualify in these standards. And lastly, we introduce the centralized processing center. So we have 4 regional hubs in China, and we hope to, because we centralize the processing center, we can enable us to better control the chicken quality. So we tag the chickens from the sources. We also ensure the result is released for the chicken checking before they transfer to the KFC outlets. And also we try to introduce the foreign supplies, as mentioned in the case, which is the operation funder. And hopefully we can increase the competition and increase the industry standards. And eventually we can reduce the 25 pottery suppliers to 16 to 20, enable us to better control these suppliers. So overall, actually the 3 initiatives from the revamped supply chain method is to ensure product safety. And now I will pass the time to Yan to talk about science of our proposal.
Thank you, Joseph. So yes, the products are safe, but that's not enough, because at the end of the day, what we want is for the customers to buy the chicken. And so what do we need to do? We actually have to rebuild our brand into a sound brand of food safety in the minds of customers. And there are 2 steps. Firstly, we have to deal with crisis management from the previous scandals. And of course, there's Operation Thunder going on right now, but it's not enough, and we have to strengthen that. And secondly, looking forward in the future, we have to continue and build up ourselves and have an image of a pioneer in the food safety industry, so that we can build in that and instill that strong confidence that customers need in our brand. So let's first look at the first step, rebuilding the sound brand that we have. currently, we summarize the actions that operations undertook, and we can see in TV, social media, and printed forms such as table mats, they do a lot of things. But there's one commonality in all these strategies. They're very short, they're very brief. Yes, customers know that KFC cares, but they don't really know how. And things like poetry writing, it doesn't really transfer to customers the things they want to know. So we need a better narrative to communicate to customers so that they can know about the product safety and the food safety of our products. And so some examples include for TV, we don't stop at commercials. We can do things like partnering with TV shows on Phoenix TV in China so that we can have a feature on the controversy and how we address it so that customers can know better about what we are doing right now. As for social media, definitely you can answer, but that's not the only thing you can do. You can actually go and address all the myths that we have about KFC. I'm sure that some of you have seen a picture about a chicken with 3 legs or 3 drumsticks in KFC, and those are a lot of urban myths that make people judge and make people worry about KFC safety. And we can do that. It's like Mythbusters in a social media setting. But what we are more concerned about would actually be to provide channels that are informative and user-friendly. And it's not just printed on the table mats or on posters, but it will be online and interactive and readily updated so that customers will know about what they want to know. So we want a more transparent exposure. And how do we do it? Firstly, of course, we have to utilize the data and statistics we have. From what Joseph mentioned before, of course, we have a lot of things that we're doing. But all those are numbers and statistics and basically terminologies that you and me probably don't really understand. So what we need to do is that we have to utilize those data and translate them into formats that people will understand. So maybe we can have an interactive map of China and all the chicken supply farms that we have and show them on our webpage. And then they can actually go and look and see, where their chicken is coming from and whether it's linked to scandals or not. And furthermore, what's more even important is that we regularly and readily update the information we have about product safety. In the case, we noted that KFC previously actually know that there are problems with their chicken, but they failed to communicate that with the customers. And that actually led to the scandal being more hard to contain than before. So what we want to do is that, of course, you can do table mats, you can even print them on cups and so on, but you provide them with QR codes, with links and so on, so that they can go online and go through both websites and social media and know about what happens to the chicken. And if a crisis breaks out, then what did KFC do to prevent it and how to contain it, such as maybe they shut up their chicken farms, maybe they decided to get chickens from another area. All these are things that customers really care about, but we are currently not doing enough in, and we need to do that in order to rebuild our brand. But of course, looking in the future, this isn't enough. We can't just do crisis management. It's not like, there's a crisis, so let's deal with it, and then that's it. But looking forward, we need to rebuild our brand as a pioneer in food safety. So currently, Joseph also mentioned before, current standards, we have things like ISO 20000 and so on. But is that enough? We don't think so. What we want is to set up higher standards. So there are a lot of things that we can do. The usage of antibiotics, sanitary conditions, or even how the chickens are bred. Maybe they're shut in cages, or maybe they get to run around free. Those are things that customers potentially care about, especially when you're talking about the quality of their food. And we don't want to set up higher standards within ourselves. We want to expand the scope. And by expanding the scope, we mean to promote the active adoption of such standards in the industry, so that it's not only us who's doing it, but actually other people are also using KFC standard when they're sourcing chicken or when they're producing chickens. So other major players will also have this as a reference point, and we can push up the food safety standards in the entire industry together. And why would we do that? Why would we want to do this as an entire industry? It's because we want to be the pioneer. And being the pioneer, of course, means rebuilding our brand image, but it also means to instill the brand confidence in customers, especially when we have crisis, when we have another outbreak of avian flu and so on. They would want to know that what they're consuming is safe. And definitely, there are also additional benefits, such as, for example, maybe during the supply chain, if more people or more companies request for such standards, then more suppliers will be willing to provide such chickens that meet such standards. And all in all, what we want is to build up a sound image of safety, of food safety, of chicken safety, and that KFC is the best and the pioneer in this. So let me now pass the time to Kelvin to talk about our implementation.
So here comes the implementation timeline, or what we call major recap of the major recommendations. So first of all, as mentioned by Joseph, we have to revamp the supply chain. So first of all, we have to find the good suppliers, the star suppliers list, and also to have a source diversifications. Then, when that's become mature, then we can build on our central processing centers, centralize the processing, the slaughter process. Second is to restore the brand. Actually, first of all, we have to improve our crisis management. And after that, when this becomes mature, then we, in the long term, can do the standard setting in terms of the pioneer. And besides the implementation timeline, we have the financial analysis for your reference. So we are always asking whether the costs are justified. So obviously, if so many recommendations, there are a lot of costs. For example, for the revamped supply chain, you can see that we actually may increase the cost a bit, but is it justified? We believe it is justified because we have three options. First of all, the company farmer model, which we are talking about. And the second one is the in-house breeding, and also the third one is the importing. But this is already the cheapest among the three. And we save some quality control costs along the chain, and it's very important. And besides, you can see that in order to restore the brand, we have to spend marketing costs on the crisis management, and also we have to spend the research costs in the standard setting, which is the forward-looking part. And also, we have to spend some costs to encourage other industry incumbents to use our standard, adopt our standards. But we still think it's justified because in the food industry, it's very important to ensure the quality. With the quality and trust in your product, you can build the customer loyalty. Then your customers will frequently purchase your products that will eventually turn into cash. And this is what KFC should go forward. And there obviously are some risks that we want to share with you and our ways to mitigate it. First of all, to redesign the contracts, somehow we have to mark the contract price to market in order to entertain the suppliers. But this means the contract prices are subject to the fluctuations of the market prices. So how can we hedge it? Actually, we recommend that the company can go to banks to find out some structured products to hedge it. And secondly, we have to think of the large bargaining powers of the suppliers, because we want to centralize the supply chain, but they are actually very large and they may oppose us. So we have to convince them by saying that only by improving the quality that can turn into cash. And besides, the third one is some customers are already lost by a series of scandals from the case, as you can see, and there are a lot of social media that is imposing pressure on it. So we have to do some marketing tactics. Of course, it is short term. And for example, the rotation menu among different provinces or different seasons, and some short-term loyalty program. Last but not least, the bird flu. The bird flu is a risk that we cannot mitigate eventually, but we believe that we can import from other countries somehow in that particular seasons. So Ivan will do a wrap-up.
So with all this mitigation and contingency plans, we believe that we presented to you a safe and sound strategy, which incorporate of two parts, which is be safe and being sound, apparently. Safe means safe product. Safe product is important because the issues is about food safety. And the very first step in the whole strategy is making sure that our food that we deliver in every single outlet in China, they are actually safe for people to consume. And then after we have safe product, we have to convince our customer that, okay, now when you come to KFC, we will have safe product, not like we had some bird flu or some kind of antibiotics inside our chicken anymore. So this strategy involves different parts. For safe products, we want to first diversify our sourcing so that we have more different diverse chicken and also sources geographically of chicken. And then secondly, we want to select the right farmer. Not the largest one, not the smallest one, but the most reliable and those with highest quality of farm. And the last one is actually about having a centralized food processor. So with our regional hubs proposal, we can reduce the number of food processors from 25 to actually 4 to 5 per region, which is 16 to 20. And then after we have all this control and all the internal control like tagging systems to ensure the safe product, we want to move on to having a sound brand, which involves of two parts. The first one is to have a step up in our marketing campaign, in our PR campaign, to restore confidence. And moving forward, we want KFC to be pioneer in food safety, so that even when bird flu break out in China again, people will know that KFC is the pioneer even if they go away from the whole industry, we can still retain some of our customers even if there is a large-scale outbreak of events. So, all in all, today the safe and sound strategy we have presented, we believe that it will bring KFC a safe and sound leading position in China moving forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, Q&A session, 15 minutes.
Okay. So, what do you guys think was the biggest mistake that KFC made in the overall process here?
I think our team discussed about the whole supply chain, obviously, but then one very important mistake that KFC made is that they actually have the testing system in place, but then they failed to report it, and they failed to have the report out before the food reached their outlet. So this is not only an internal control issue, but the whole upward supply chain control issue. So we want to first, that's why the first priority is always having a safe product, make sure that the test is in place, which they have some kind of test now, but then they also have to make sure that the tests come from reliable sources, come from reliable suppliers, and then go to KFC before the food is actually delivered to the customers.
Okay. The other thing, I was a bit unclear in the safe part of your presentation, right? About what would happen with the source, right? In terms of the number, you wanted to increase the number, right? But the processor were reducing the number, right? What were the kind of numbers in terms of increasing the number of sources? Did you have a number?
Actually,
Okay, you don't. Okay.
so actually we try to optimize the farmer size. So right now, the operation fund reduce the farmers who produce 1,000 chickens or less because they are small farmers. They cannot have the cost and capital to implement the safety measures. So they reduce the smaller farmers. But what we're going to do is reduce the larger farmers as well. Two reasons, because larger farmers, they have a lot of chickens within a one farm. So when there are bird flu, actually the whole farm will impact it. So we try to minimize that kind of risk. And also we reduce the larger farmers such that the supply bargaining power is more diverse. This will enable us to try to locate different suppliers from all the regions with the optimum size, which we try to, we have an estimate around 1,000 to 10,000. So hopefully this will be the optimized size, farm size, which we can source from our chickens. And yeah.
Did you understand then in your analysis, like what that would mean in terms of the total number of sources? Does that increase the number of sources, double the number of sources, or what would be the increase?
Probably not double, because the largest four suppliers of chickens is actually control less than 5% of the overall chicken supplies. So we reduce that kind of larger supplies and try to replace them with smaller farmers. And with this number, we hopefully try to slightly increase the supplies and because at the same time we're reducing the small farmers as well. So it's kind of like slight increase instead of a double.
Yeah. Okay. What would be the challenges then in changing that model from fewer bigger ones to more small ones?
I think we actually need to increase the contractual arrangement to make it better protect both ourselves and also the farmers. So major concern raised in the case is that the farmers, when they are raising their chickens and they want to supply to us, but then the market price actually much higher than the price we offered. So they will sell it to the outside market instead of providing to us, because the contractual protection is not actually quite effective in China. But what we are going to do is we've proposed the mark-to-market contract such that even the market price is higher than the original price we proposed, we match that price to ensure the good farmers will supply the chickens to us, such that we don't need to find other supplies that we cannot have the test or checking before.
And then the processors, the number of processors will be reduced, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Given you have a number of problems you have to, KFC have to deal with, why do you think that KFC need to, other than solving its own problem, but need to set the standard for the industry as well? And I think this is the ultimate goal. But why you said that this will become the mission of KFC?
Thank you for your question. So actually we did discuss this during our preparation just now, and we think there are two major goals. Firstly, it's because of the food safety problem in China. As we have all known in the news, there are always a lot of problems related to food safety, both in terms of chemical or the quality of meat. So we think that this is a problem that we cannot just address within ourselves, but even if we have high standards, it's hard for us to go through the entire supply chain and ensure that every single process can be fulfilled like that using the current regulations that the Chinese government has. So by having such a larger, wider industry standards, we believe that it will be easier for the entire supply chain to have higher food safety, higher standards of food safety, which can in turn benefit KFC in terms of the quality of food it produces and help prevent the scandals related to food safety. And of course, the second idea would be related to the brand. Right now, KFC suffers a bit because people assume that the KFC brand isn't safe in terms of the food quality. And by marketing itself and pioneering itself as a market leader or a pioneer in food safety, it actually instills confidence. The way what the brand stands for, it's not only about finger-licking good chicken, not only about Colonel Sanders and all the fried chicken that we've known all throughout ages, but more about, it's about something even more. It's about quality and trustworthy food. And we believe that by pushing it to an industry-wide standard, we can better instill that brand image and that brand confidence in the mind of customers. So therefore, we don't want to just limit ourselves to good standards within KFC, but to expand it towards the entire industry.
So to add on, there are some strategies that can be executed by KFC alone. For example, Joseph mentioned the mark-to-market practices, so we can implement that by KFC alone. But then they will attract the good farmers all to KFC. So the industry will actually follow, right? So this is some kind of strategy that we have the power to implement on our own. But then for the industry-wide food safety standard, it's hope among all the fast food chains, not only KFC. But KFC here is not taking all the burden on themselves and making it one of the mission of KFC, but then it's taking the lead and being the pioneer in initiating a forum or a conference on setting up such industry standard and make it a core member of such standard. Because having that, it ensures that they have bargaining power over all the poultry suppliers in the nation, but not only the one dealing with KFC. So we can ensure that the food quality in China go up, and also KFC can benefit from it by lowering its QC cost in the long run.
So in your supply chain analysis, have you compared to the other options? And what do you think? Why do you choose this company farmer model as opposed to other options?
I think the basically idea is we don't want to import other poultry from other countries, mainly because Chinese is actually pursuing a protectionism in their import strategy. So to us, when even the Brazil chicken may be cheaper or American chicken are cheaper in the region, when we import that, actually it's much higher because the Chinese government want to protect the farmers within the Chinese region. So we rule out the import alternative. Secondly is doing the whole in-house method instead of doing a company farmer model. But that is actually much costly than what we are going to improve or revamp the supply chain. After all, a farmer we need to raise chicken from all different regions in order to reduce the risk of bird flu and other risks. And we also want to maintain the supplier bargaining power, remain them to be a weak bargaining power, such that we can gain more cost benefits from the suppliers. So we don't want to do all of them in-house. And what we are going to do is doing the most value-added service part, which is providing the food services to the end user. And we use all the suppliers outsourcing to reduce our cost structure. So this is the main idea. And we think that we improve the supply chain by imposing different measures, as mentioned in our presentation. This will still much costly than removing the whole company farmer model and move it into an in-house model. And yeah.
But one of the main issues is around the quality. So how do you ensure the quality when you diversify the source? Because you may double the number of farms in the country, and with more farms to manage, how do you ensure the quality?
As we mentioned, we try to impose the industry standard. This is one part that we can do to improve the safety quality. Second part is actually we we set the control not in the farmers, but in the centralized processing center. So we have more control, and we make sure that we tag the sources so that we know which farm they come from. And when all the chicken sources are coming into our centralized processing center, we do all the checking. And as mentioned in the case, actually, KFC has done the checking, but they don't release. They release the chicken to the KFC outlets before they have the results of the quality checking. So actually, when we centralize the processing center, we have more power to control the whole process, and we ensure that the quality test is done before the chicken is released to the KFC outlet. So we impose more control on the processing step instead of more control on the farmers. But as mentioned by Yan, overall and hopefully eventually the industry standard will improve the whole industry safety standard in the farmer.
So how do you, so the food, the processor, is it in-house or is it still third party that they will be producing it?
I think majorly they will still be third party. As mentioned by the case, one of the Operation Thunder initiative is to introduce foreign suppliers into China to do the processing. And we go on that, we lobby the government, and hopefully more foreign suppliers will go into to do the processing section. And by, like as mentioned, we reduce the suppliers from 24 to around 20 to, reduced to 16 to 24 from each regions. And hopefully this will enable us to maintain the cost because they are suppliers, we have the bargaining power, but also maintain the control and the QC quality.
But you may be aware that this is always a challenge to introduce the foreign processor, which is maybe more reliable. But you know that in China there's a lot of regulation about that.
Sure.
It will be a big challenge. If you cannot do that, you still have to rely on the local processor for doing the control.
Yeah, but we know that it's a challenge, and hopefully we do the lobbying, and this will enable us to introduce them. But the main idea is the currently supplier is actually around 25 suppliers. We reduce the number to 16 to 20. This already enables us to better control all the suppliers and the processors. So we do it step by step. We're not saying within 5 years we change all the suppliers into foreign suppliers, but we hopefully it's an ongoing process. And we, as a KFC, as a brand, we hopefully change the product safety in China, and we benefit from the whole process.
So in essence, it's actually a divide and conquer strategy in the sense that we have 4 regional hubs. Each hub, we have 4 to 5 food processor, and then those food processor, they manage a number of farms, which hopefully they are not too small so that they don't have the capability to impose our newly set food safety measurements, or they're not too large that they are very high bargaining power. So you want the mid-sized farm, and then with a limited number of food processors, they can better manage those kind of good farmers. Those farmers are already easier to manage, and then we have less food processor to deal with, so we divide and conquer the food safety problem in China, essentially.
Just a question about timing and financials. How did you guys make your analysis on that? How did you figure out the time frame and the financial?
Right. So, so basically for the time frame, it is majorly for 2 different aspects. For the first aspect, to revamp the supply chain. So because the building of the central processing center takes time, actually it takes time to negotiate with the suppliers to turn them, like reducing the number from 25 to 4 in each region with 4 different suppliers. That is 16 to 25 to 20. So this takes some time. We estimate that to be a year or even more. Actually, it's a rough estimate. We are not saying that it's a firmly set target. And for the star supply list and also the contract redesign, which we can do it right away because it is easy to start on this part. And also for the source diversifications, it's easy to start on this. So this is why we place the first 2 as the first stage, and for the building at a later stage. And for the second one, to restore the brand, actually the crisis management is the key issue because now they conceal the issues, they conceal all the crisis, all the scandals. So first of all, we have to improve the crisis management skills or the crisis management methodology of KFC. Then we can do some forward-looking aspect, that is to set the industry-wide standard so that other companies will hopefully will adopt our standard. Because if only KFC adopting the standard, so the customer will still think that, for example, if McDonald's food quality have problem, then they will also perceive KFC foods have problems. So that's why eventually we visualize that we should have an industry-wide standard so that all customers within China at least will believe that the food quality is up to standard.
Okay, thank you all the teams. We're especially grateful to our judges. Thank you, judges. We know you are very busy, and thank you very much for the contribution.